Hello everybody, my name is Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we're going live with a really cute class called Boo. And so it's very fun, great for the holidays, and here is our lovely model. So I'll bring it a little bit closer to you so you can see. Alright, and then this is the version that will come with the kit that we sell. So this ships really easily, 11 by 14 size, everything you need. We do start with a traceable, so we give you everything that you need for this. So the traceable comes to you with the graphite paper and the tape and permanent marker and all that good stuff to do the transfer process. So what I do here first is I go ahead and just tape it down, and then I go ahead, in your kit it comes with a colored pencil so you can see really well where you've been. So I do all the trace first, and then I just lift off. And initially you will have what looks like a graphite transfer. So it's just like just like pencil on there. So really easy to see. And you can absolutely leave it just like that if you prefer that. Or in the kit we have a permanent marker so that you can firm up all the lines. I actually really enjoy that so you don't lose any of your trace, and to me it just makes the process a lot easier, especially with lettering. So you can do all that first, again, with just a permanent marker there for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started painting. All right, so, and hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I see some names. Let's see. Hi, Larry, Nancy, Grace, Lisa, welcome, welcome. So, and I'm sorry if I don't say your name. It's because it kind of, let's see, Betty, that one's going way up. Shelly. Hello, hello. So greetings everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with all the brights first. So what I like to do, just as a general rule, is I like to do all of my color blocking first. And I like to start with all the light, really light colors first, and then do black at the very end. That way you don't run the risk of, muddying up all your bright colors. All right, so I've got a little paint plate. I went ahead and did some white initially just to go ahead and give me that base. But I'm actually going to go ahead and start with, let's go ahead and do this cute little pumpkin here. So let's see, in our kit we have all these fun little paints here. They're really cute. Mine are used, so yours will be full, I promise. Actually, let me show you what that looks like. I see a few names. Rolinda, Tamara. Howdy! Okay, so this kind of gives you an idea of how pretty they look in your kit when you first get it. All right, so we're going to start with, got a little bit of orange here, so I'm going to go ahead and start with a little bit of orange there. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and do just a nice little heaping dollop of that. It is, oh, people always ask for a reference, so about a dime size amount there. Alrighty, and then I've got my white nearby, and then I want to go ahead and I'm going to have just a little bit of the black nearby, because we do kind of mix this up just a teeny amount, super teeny amount to mix, to kind of make a dull gray to mix in with this a little bit. And then let me do some primary yellow. There we go, primary yellow. Let's get that going. I think that's about it for that one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my little buddy brush, and then I'm going to start by mixing up that orange and that primary yellow. Let's get both of those going together. And then how about just a little bit of the white there too? Just kind of dull it a little bit. Now if you want to make this not so bright and a little bit more of like a khaki quality coming into the mix, you can do that too. So actually let me separate out a little bit more of the primary yellow. A little dollop there, kind of push that off to the side. And then I'm going to take a big dollop of the white, still using little buddy brush, a little bit of that yellow, and then just a tiny little touch of the black. So I don't really pick up black, I just barely touch into it. See, it's super tiny amount there. So I'm going to go ahead and push that in. All right, so this will give me kind of more of like a little khaki color happening here. So I keep pushing that black into it. That gives it, let's go with a gray first, And then to warm it up to the khaki, then you add a little bit more of that yellow. All right, so now we've got some bright to play with, and we also have some of that khaki color to play with. So we can kind of mix both of those together as we go here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and place this one off into the water. Anytime you're not using a brush, you can go ahead and just let it rest in the water. You wanna do that as opposed to letting it just sit out, because our acrylic paint will definitely set up and dry on you pretty quickly. So you wanna prevent that from happening. We wanna make sure we keep brushes and not sticks. So again, if this hardens up on here, you'll have a nice stick to kind of swat somebody with. But other than that, it's kind of worthless as a brush. So again, just make sure it rests in your lovely bucket of water. All right. So here we go. We've got our lovely little orange, bright yellow, a little bit of this lovely peachy quality that happens with that little bit of white that happens in there. So I'm going to go ahead and start by placing this into the shape. And then you're gonna start to see why I really love that little black that shows through there, that retains that trace so I don't lose it. And then I'll be able to follow back through into that line. My daughter's on here. Hi, London. I love you too. Love you, sweetie. Oh my gosh, my daughter hasn't been on here in a while. I'm a proud mommy. My daughter is a beautiful young lady who is going to college at Central Michigan University. She is super smart, beautiful, and I love her so much. And she's working very hard at school. So she's very busy. All right, so there's my beautiful peachy quality happening there. Now you can add a little bit of this beautiful little taupe color in here too. And so we see that a lot with pumpkins. They have a little bit more of that earth tone quality to it. So while the paint's still wet, I'll do a slight little brush into that other brighter orange. And that kind of dulls it a little bit. And again, you don't have to do that. If you like it just really light and bright, you can certainly just keep it that way. But some people like to make it a little bit more subdued and muted. Okay, so I'll add a little bit more of a touch of that khaki that goes in there. That right next to that black line, and it creates this really fun little, little bit of a highlight around that curve. All right, so that's quite lovely. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and place this one back into the water. Now I have a bigger shape to, push into here, and I'm going to keep that one a bit more traditional and bright. So I'm going to come back into my bright orange, and then maybe a little bit of a mix of that bright yellow. So I'll go ahead and push that into this shape here. And I'm using, sorry I mentioned this earlier, I'm using the Mama brush. So there's my Mama brush, 1/2 inch. And so at first I'm gonna hold it a little bit more, just like a pencil, so that I can get in there and make those sharp turns, and then also take advantage of that line edge on the edge of the brush. So I'm gonna do that initially to go ahead and work into that shape. Now I'm going to have to switch gears a little bit and turn that handle more over to the side. So let me bring this canvas closer to you so you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now this will feel a little bit awkward, but that's actually part of the point. You don't want it to be, this is a real comfortable hold, but what happens when you're very comfortable with that hold is you apply a lot of pressure, and so it digs into the paint. And as you do that, it actually will just wipe it right off. So actually, let me just show you what I mean by that. So there I go. I'm gonna press right on there firmly, and you can see how it just makes it very smooth, but it also kind of digs the paint right off. But now I've got a lot of paint right on. See, it just pushed it all right back on top of the brush is what it did. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just with a light hand brush over to the side. I'm gonna go ahead and apply that paint over the surface area. And you can see how it's letting it just gently rest on top of the canvas and leaving it on there. So that will give you a much more opaque finish over the top of that pumpkin. And then of course it also kind of helps smooth out your brush strokes too, so it gives a nice smooth finish. So that's our little pumpkin shape kind of coming out on this end here. All right, now I am already out of orange, so I need to load up with that a little bit more. So here's more orange. I'm going to go ahead and push more of that onto my plate. So get another dollop, pretty healthy amount. I may just be, I'm trying to use up the rest of my paint from my other kits, and so I'm getting a little low on that one. I may have to break open a new tube here. But again, more orange. This is Cadmium Orange. And I had somebody ask me the other day what cadmium meant. We looked it up on Google. It's not memorable. I don't know. It was something really obscure. Like cadmium is the hue of a color. I mean, it just meant nothing to us. And so we all just laughed and said, wow, that didn't help at all. So I don't know. I may have to do more research into that to get to something that feels like it means something to me. But for right now, cadmium still doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It wasn't. It's just kind of a fun little search on Google just to see what it meant, and it didn't really tell us a whole lot. It almost said something like the quality of having cadmium or something. So we were just like, oh, isn't that lovely? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and paint some of this beautiful orange into here. If you want to brighten it up a little bit, you can go ahead and add a little bit of that primary yellow as you go. See how that really brightens it up. I also have one little line in here that will probably be a little bit stubborn and, you know, poke through that paint a little bit. And so I want to make sure that I really lay this paint on thick here. So I'm going to go ahead and really turn that brush over to the side to get really good coverage over that. For the most part though, if you can actually, I just didn't catch that in time, and so should have erased that before I started. So now it's going to peek through a little bit. So I'm just going to have to be a little bit more diligent about doing maybe a few more coats to just come in over the top, make sure that has good coverage over the surface. Now what's interesting about all this, because I did do this in a permanent marker, and your kit does come with that, you can actually not really worry about doing all the cut-in work because you're going to be coming into these shapes with black. So look what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to go ahead and just do a nice wash right over the surface area. And so that way you can relax through the process. That black will most definitely bleed through. And then that way you can just have fun. You don't have to worry about trying to cut in and be too precise. So just relax with it. Hold your brush over to the side. That'll give you a nice light hand. Again, I'm kind of pushing in. Every now and again, I kind of push into just a little bit of that bright primary yellow and kind of softly blend that into your orange. That'll make it kind of light and bright. Also helps it, I think, cover better on your canvas. Make sure y'all can see. All right, so again, nice light hand. A lot of surface area on this large shape. So at first I'm going to do the line work all around the edge here. That's going to dig in though and make some brush strokes that I have to kind of feather back in. So then now I'm going to come back in with the side part of the brush, lightly feather those out. All right, light hand. Feather that back out into the center. All right. So now we are good to go on that. Cute, cute. And then again, don't worry, because you can already see how it's starting to bleed through. And then the more it dries, the more it will bleed through. And so when we come back at the end, we'll just fill that in with the black and we'll be all good. All right, so I'm gonna leave my ghost white. All this background's going to be black. I do have some more brights up here for my beautiful moon. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my mama brush and give her a bath. So I'm gonna go ahead and push her into the water, spin around and round and round. That helps release the paint. All right, And then we're gonna go ahead and dry off here. All right, so I'm just using, you can use like a wash rag or a hand towel, paper towels. I actually prefer something a bit more absorbent. If you're at home, I prefer wash rag or paper, not paper towel, I'm sorry, wash rag or hand towel for the drying. And then it's interesting, if you're doing like light blotting and things like that, that's where the paper towels come in more handy. All right, so yellow, bright yellow for our lovely moon. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and come back in with some primary yellow. So let's get a little bit more of that happening. Then, ta-da, there it is. And then also now some cadmium yellow. So a little bit of that, that'll be fun in there. And I have some white still nearby, so we'll do a little bit of that too. So again, that's our cadmium yellow. Okay, so let's mix those up. And this is, let's go back in with our mama brush again. So we've got our primary yellow, a little bit of cadmium yellow, and then a little bit of white. So we can push that all together. That white pigment in there, what that does is it really helps it lightens and brightens it just a little bit, subtle, real subtle difference. But more importantly, what it does help it do is really gets good coverage over that canvas. So if it tends to be a little bit translucent, when you can, you try to add a little bit of white to it, and that'll help. All right, now, I am going to need a smaller brush pretty quickly because I'm already getting into some small areas. So I'm gonna go ahead and scrape off all this, residual paint there. We don't want that to go to waste, and then I'll put this in the water. And I'm gonna switch back over to little buddy brush here. So here's my little buddy, little 1/4 inch flat brush. I really like a Taklon brush. Now at first, when I'm doing this cut-in work, you'll notice it digs into the paint, but I have to do that initially just so I get that line edge done, because I definitely need to optimize using the line edge to get that precision in there. So I'll go ahead and use that to begin with in this position. Again, just hold it like a pencil. And then once you've worked into that small area, then you can shift gears a little bit and then hold it more over to the side. So shift gears, hold it like this. And then that will help feather out those brush strokes, have it blend back into the center here. And I'll give you that nice coverage over the surface again. And again, this is that primary yellow, cadmium yellow, and then a little bit of white too. So this is our beautiful bright moon. Okay, and then going to go in and feather this in a little bit. And you can even come in, it's still a little bit hard to get it completely feathered out with this really small brush because you're gonna keep seeing these tiny little brush strokes. So what I do a lot is once I've got my cut-in work done, then I'll come back in with a bigger brush, as big as you can handle, which Mama is a good fit here, and then just kind of lightly feather that out in the biggest area. And then that will just kind of lightly blend that out and get rid of those brush strokes in there. So we've got our beautiful little moon done. All right, so now that's it for that. I still have all this beautiful yellow, and we still need a little bit of this lovely khaki to happen here, and then a little bit of some brown. So the quickest way to get brown is to mix some orange and some black, but I need some more orange. Okay, so here we go. Let's get some more orange. And I'm going to really try to get the last of this. The paint, I use it up. the paint is, that comes with the kits, it can last for several paintings actually. So I'm trying to use up all my last amounts there. All right, so there's my orange. Teeny tiny amount of black, so I just barely touch into that. You can see how tiny it is. I don't really pick it up, I just kind of barely touch into it. And let's start there and see what we get. All right, so there's a really light brown. We want, actually that looks more like rust, so that's a good lesson too, just in case you want some rust on there. So if you just barely touch into that orange, the first level is going to give you a rust. And then let's do a little bit more. And then the more black we add, well then it just takes it right to that beautiful chocolate brown. So that's quite lovely. All right, so if you need more, then you have to, of course, just kind of keep mixing this up, going back and forth until you get, we're gonna need a little bit more to fill in that whole tree. And I still have my lovely khaki up here and some highlights here. So I'll continue to use some of those as needed. And you can even make like a lighter brown by pushing a little bit more of that yellow. We're gonna borrow some of that and make that more of like a pale brown. So let me get closer and show you. Here's that. All right, so now, still using that mama brush, and I'm actually gonna use the line edge of the brush to go ahead and fill into these shapes. So this is the tree. The bare winter tree, and around the edges I'm going to keep it, I'm going to start with the brown first, and then I'm going to go into some of this, that khaki that we had mixed up earlier, maybe a little more of that yellow, and I'll just fill right into that. So I'm going to come right back in. See, I have a black background that will be coming in later, so I'm going to start with a little bit of the brown, but then I'm going to go ahead and fill in with a lot of that really beautiful yellow that we had. And the reason why I'm wanting to lighten this up to a much lighter brown is so that it will have really nice contrast up against that black sky. Otherwise, if it's too dark of a brown, it'll just get really lost. So we're gonna go ahead and keep it light. Keep using the edge of the brush. This will cover really well because it has all these colors in it, and the more colors you tend to mix together, especially if you have some little lights and brights in there, you get really good coverage naturally. I take it out to the edges here, and I take it to a point that I just lift off with a light hand. And we're going to be coming back in with more black later too, so you can always come back in and do cleanup with some black too, and help taper things a little bit more. We're still just filling all this in. So we're working back and forth with this brown that we mixed up. Again, that was our orange and our black. And then I'm still pushing in a lot of this bright yellow and a little bit of white. And then that kind of pulls us to more of a light brown. So this is our winter tree. And I had a little bit of a, it's barely an oops. I did go out of line there, but you know what? It's okay because we can go right back into that with black and clean it up later. So that's just, it's a temporary oopsie, but no worries, because that's going to be super easy to fix. Not even a need to erase. Just come back in with some tidying up with the black. And honestly, even if you didn't want to, I'm still going to want to because I don't want that to still peek through, and it will. So I'll just come back into that with black here in a little bit. All right, so there is our winter tree. So we're making progress. Make sure y'all can see that. Let's turn this, so it might be easier. Ah, better. Okay. Okay, so we have our winter tree there. All right, now let's do some beautiful roses. Okay, let's do some pink, kind of spice it up, add a little bright color here. All right, so I am going to use some primary magenta. So let's get some of that going. I still have my white, and you can even add a little bit of orange to that too if you want, and that will give you a pretty coral. That's certainly an option. And then I'm going to come back in with my little buddy brush again. A little bit of white, a little bit of that primary magenta. Let's mix those two together. I want to lighten it up a little bit. By the way, if you wanted to do like white roses, that would just be, you don't want a pure white, but you might want to make like a real light gray. So you can add just a tiny touch of the black. You know what, just for fun, let's go ahead and do a white one too, because I think a lot of people like that, especially with all the shabby chic look. We'll do a little white rose too. All right, so let's go ahead and do this pink. Start with pink roses in here first. These are a light pink. Now if you want to push this one to a little bit of a coral, then let's add a tiny amount of orange in there. See, now we've got this really beautiful coral look happening. I want it to be a little bit more of a pinky coral, so it doesn't look too much like our pumpkin. Got to make sure we get that contrast. All right, so at first, roses look like big, lumpy circles, okay? So that's okay. And fill all that in. All right. Now, let's do these roses over here as white roses. Okay, so we've got big dollop of white, and then let's do just a tiny little touch of the black. And we're gonna make a super light gray, very light. All right, and we're gonna push this into that shape there. So again, very, very light gray. Same thing here. You can also add a tiny amount of a cream feeling to it. Like, you know, we've got that khaki that was kind of left over. So you can add a little bit of that too. That gives a nice kind of wintry look to it. Actually, I really like that, so let's continue to use that. Reminder on that mix, if you don't have any more, that's your primary yellow, your white, and just a tiny touch of the black. So yeah, I'm really digging on that. So let's go ahead and push that into that shape as well. All right, so again, our roses look like big lumpy circles. Yes. Okay, so now we need pattern work over those. So we're going to go ahead and come in with our little bit brush, all right, and just pure white to begin with. Okay, so we've got a little bit and just some white paint. And then the basic pattern here will look like you make a parentheses, and then another parentheses. And then you just keep pushing that in a circular pattern. Take it all the way around the rose. So this is the first pattern. So you can already see how that's starting to evolve into an abstracted rose. All right, so again, little bit brush. I've got a little, it's driving me crazy, a little hair. Okay. Don't y'all hate it when that happens? I can't be the only one this happens to. So, I don't know if I got it or not. Maybe. I don't know. I don't see very well anymore. So, well, I saw enough to see that tiny little hair, and then now it's like removing it. It's like, Okay. So a little bit brush again. Let's do a little twist like this into the paint. And then little like half circles or like parentheses. It's kind of a fun way to think of it. And just keep taking those all the way around the shape. All right, and then the same thing will happen here on these roses over here. So we've got this kind of nice khaki, real light khaki or light gray quality to it. And we're gonna come in with just white to begin with. And again, just a little half circle. And you can even wiggle your brush a little bit as you do this, because you want it to have a feeling. It's not perfect. You don't want these really perfect, precise little parentheses, but basically just kind of a little wiggle to it. Just keep kind of pushing that around in a circular pattern. Same thing here on the other one. All right. Beautiful start. Okay, now we need to come in with the darkest color next. All right, so still using little bit brush. I'm gonna switch, I've got several, and they kind of vary just slightly in size. I'm gonna go a little bit tinier. So this time, again, darkest color. So now what I wanna do is I wanna make sure I'm gonna use just the primary magenta. I'm gonna need a little bit more of that though, so let's reload up a little bit. So primary magenta. And all right, so a little bit brush, and then let's do just a little touch into that primary magenta there. So see how it's on the brush, and then let's go ahead and go into the center. What we want to do here is a little touch, looks like a little tiny comma, and then just lift off with a light hand. So tiny comma, and then lift off with a light hand. See, it's just a tiny little spot right there. Same thing here. And then we echo the same pattern we just did. So little, almost like that little parentheses shape. And we'll take this all the way around. See how pretty? Yay. And it's a little bit more of a hint of this darkest color, so you don't need as much of this as you do the lightest part. And as a matter of fact, if you get a little bit too heavy-handed with the dark, you can always work back in some more of the light. You can just kind of touch back into that white, get a nice soft blend happening again. Just a little repeat. There it is. Okay, so now we need to work into the other rose. Now, our darkest color on this one, since it's white, it would just be a darker gray. So again, still using our little bit brush, but we do need a darker charcoal gray this time. So I've got my black, and I've got a little bit of white here. So I'm gonna push into that. We don't want it to be black, but we don't want it to be super light. So here we are in this dark charcoal color, right there. So a little bit brush, and then a little comma, lift off with a light hand. Same thing here, a little comma, lift off with a light hand. And then once again, just little half circles. And so if I get a little bit dark, which I feel like I kind of am on that one, easy peasy, I can just come back in with a little bit more white. I'm gonna come back in with a little bit more of this. I'm gonna get my shadow in place. More of this charcoal color happening. Make sure y'all can see. Again, just little half circles here. All right, rinse out, dry off. Let's come back in with one more layer of white. So a little bit. And then just again, repeat, little half circles, kind of wiggle the brush a little bit. And just go right over the top. And sometimes you have to go back and forth more than once. All right. I want that little center in there. Yeah, okay, so we're looking good. We have cute little roses now. All right, so now let's go ahead and do some sage green, because that'll be our next light bright color. So, green, let's see. Let's go ahead and just use some cadmium green. All right, so let's do a little bit of that here. There we go. And we already have some gray nearby, so it's really just a mix of our cadmium green and some gray. Or in this case, just green, a little bit of tiny amount of black, and some white. So you can make it really dark, or if you like more of a light sage green, then let's add a little bit more white. There it is. There is our beautiful sage green. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do our pretty little leaves with that sage. So I'm gonna go ahead and push into those shapes. Basic shape here, it looks like a parentheses, and then another parentheses, and then you just fill in. And then you can also kind of take it up to a tiny little point at the end as well. You can add a little bit of a curve to it also if you like the look of that, or you can just keep it more simple, as I mentioned, with that real simple little, you know, shape like that, parentheses, and just connect. Well, that almost looks like a letter V too, so that's another way to tell your brain to simplify it for you. All right, you know, I didn't draw the little leaves over here, but I'm really liking them, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in more of those. Those are really fun and easy to paint in. Cute. All right, now we need to do our little stems on our pumpkin. So I need for this to be this light brown again. I probably should have done it when I did my tree, but I forgot. So let's go back in and find a little buddy brush. So we have our brown, and again, our brown is our orange and our black. So let's mix up a little bit more. We're getting a little lean on that. All right, so we've got orange and black, and that gives us our brown. Then I want to go ahead and pull from our yellow over here. Let's push that in, and that will lighten it up, because I do want this to be kind of light. Nice light brown. All right, so let's push back and forth into that color. Here we are with my little buddy. And then let's go ahead and just hold it like a pencil. Use the line edge of the brush. That's gonna be the easiest hold on that. That'll get that line work done. And then you can also kind of turn it more over to the side to fill into the center part. And then if you need to get your little bit too, I completely understand. Some of these little areas can be kind of challenging, and some folks might really appreciate that smaller brush to get into the smaller area. And I'm gonna add just a touch more yellow in there, kind of lighten that up. All right, awesome. We got one more over here. Check the monitor, make sure I can see. Yes, okay. And then we have our groundwork down here too that we need to work in some lighter colors too. So, or you could just do it, honestly, you could do it all just black all the way around it, which would be really precious as well. I'm gonna go ahead and use my mama brush here. And I'm gonna do a little mix of that sage green and that yellow. And just go ahead and push that into the base. Just going to get a solid color over the top here. Again, this is that sage green, and I'm also using a little bit of that bright yellow since I have that on my plate. So I'm going to go ahead and use that in here. And you can just be very simple with this and just leave it as a solid color and not worry about details. I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to do a little bit of like a grassy stroke too, just for fun. So we'll do a little bit of that also. And that actually wasn't in the model, but I still think that would be a fun project. So here we go. Oops, I'm out of green. All right, hold on. So, more cadmium green. So I need to do a little bit of a remix now. So we don't want to just use it as is. We've got a little bit of that black, a little bit of white. Let's get it back to that sage again. All right, so we're good to go again. And then let's get some of that yellow too. All right, so we're reloading. Let's get right next to that edge. So again, this is really fun and pretty. Get a nice smooth coat, kind of feather that out a little bit. So you could just certainly leave it just like that. So not a problem for that simple look, or we can do the grass. Now I'm gonna wait and do the grass at the very end because it will need to kind of extend beyond into the sky. So I wanna do all my black work first. So we're gonna let this set up. That's just gonna be our base and our foundation there. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this off. Get into the water. We now have a lot of black that we can start to work in. All right, so I'm gonna rinse out my brush. Take the mama here and just dry it off. And I'm definitely need some more black, so. There we go, more black paint. I'm using some of my studio paint for some of the black. Sometimes I do so much painting, I use copious amounts of white and black, and I recommend that for y'all too. So with our paint kits, they have all these really beautiful specialized colors, but I think it's a good idea to, if you're gonna buy in bulk of anything, it's a good idea to have black and white as bulk colors nearby. So especially white. So go through a lot of white, and then, you know, it could even just be that craft paint, but it's really nice to have extra of that just in case. All right, so now let's go ahead and take our mama brush again, and we'll go ahead and work into the black paint now. And you know, I forgot about my bats. My bats are kind of a light gray. Well, it's okay. I'm working with black, so let's go ahead and add a little bit of white. We want our bats to be like they're typically black, but in this case, because of the black sky, I have to think about the planning with that a little bit, and I don't want them to get lost, so that's why I make them like a dark charcoal color. And then I really need to use my little buddy, or even a little bit for some of this. All right, so here we go. Actually, let this wait for just a minute. We'll come back to that. All right, so I'm gonna pick up this charcoal color. little bit brush. Let's do a little twist. And then we will work this into that shape there, because we've got lots of tiny little points. And we definitely don't want our bat, our cute bat, to get lost with that black sky. So let's go ahead and paint all this charcoal gray. And you can use your little buddy too. Like, I'm just gonna use my little bit to get into all the points. One other thing too, most of y'all are working at a kitchen table, dining room table, coffee table. So if you're working flat, which I actually really recommend for a lot of beginners, because it allows you the flexibility to mix in a tiny amount of water here and there and help extend the paint and make it more fluid. And you never have to worry about water runs that way if it's just flat. So, but if you are working on an easel and you do want to have a little bit of a mix with water to make the paint more fluid, again, just go ahead and take the time to put your canvas in a flat position so that you don't run the risk of a water run. So I mention that because we're getting a lot of this dry brush effect that's happening, and if we could add a little tiny amount of water to this, it would work very nicely into that paint and into those small corners, and it would make it much easier to move across the canvas. It would fill into those spaces. Be a lot easier on you. So when we're working in class, people are always on easels, and so I usually discourage people from adding any water at all, especially when the canvases are a lot bigger. But in this situation, since you're working at home and you have the flexibility to make your canvas flat, then you can go ahead and do that. It's just a lot easier on you. Okay, so again, I've got all my little corners done, and then I'll come back to that here in a moment and work back into that with my little buddy brush. Again, still working in this dark charcoal color. I'll make sure you can see me in the monitor here. So I need to get into all those little corners. Again, this is just black and white. And I'm using my little buddy brush. A little bit of water helps make the paint more fluid. The other reason why it's helpful that a little bit of water is primarily the paint that we use with our kits. It's a really high quality paint, so it's just a lot thicker than the typical studio paint that we use at our live classes. So it has a heavier body to it. So a little bit goes a long way, and of course you can certainly add more water to it to help extend it. All right, there we go. And then I'm going to switch gears now and go with little buddy and do a little fill-in the middle of the bat. Because I need to feather out those brush strokes a little bit. So here's little buddy, little 1/4 inch flat brush. It makes it easier to move into those areas. More easily get better coverage over the surface. So I'm going to turn my handle more over to the side and fill in. Turn this so I can see. I paint in my sunroom, which I normally love in the summer, and I still love all the natural light. I'm a huge fan of natural light with filming because it's just hard to beat natural light. However, winter is creating all kinds of lighting challenges because of the direction of the sun and how it comes in. And so we get sun glares, and then you can't see anything. So it's just, oh, so interesting, all the little challenges in life. All right, so here we go. Let's feather that out one more time. I get a better angle on that, see that. Okay, so now, I truly think we are down to just the black now. So that's encouraging. Okay, so let's go back to our mama brush because we have bigger areas to work into. And our black paint. Here's mama. 1/2 inch flat. Loading her up with just black paint now. And we're gonna start at the top. And just going to be as delicate as I can be when I come in and around these little branches. Definitely optimizing that line edge of the brush. So as I push into it, I want to apply firm pressure and then take a look. So it's still very thin on the edge. So that allows me to have a lot more precision as I'm working in and around these little branches. Lots more black now. So this is actually a very nice kind of easy, relaxing part of the painting process now. There's my little puppy dog. She's in here with me, Miss Ira. If y'all follow me on Instagram at Tipsy Artist, you get to see a lot of Ira. So, yeah, she's sweet pie. And then if you come to our classes here in Guthrie, Oklahoma, sometimes you get to see her there too because she's become quite sneaky and she has figured out, she's so smart. So she, you just would not believe the barricade of locks that are covering up 2 double doors that come together. There's like a latch lock and then chairs and things stacked all up against there. And she just very patiently scoots it all out of the way, knows how to wiggle the latch just right. She'll sneak out. And so she surprised us this last Saturday by running out. And thankfully, everybody was really cool about it. And they just all, oh, I love your puppy. And they loved her and it was all good. So, but she's a sweet little, she's super sweet and loves to, well, she loves to lick people. So if you don't like to be licked, that's about the only thing that's truly offensive to some. I actually don't let her lick me. It kind of freaks me out. But you know, some people just love to be licked by their dogs. I don't know. But yeah, she is we always tell that little joke at the Tipsy Artist that our dog can't hold her liquor. She's a crazy licker. All right, lots of black in here. Now this is also an area where you can certainly use a smaller brush if you want to, like your little bit or a little buddy, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. I still definitely prefer that super tiny line edge because believe it or not, the mama brush has the tiniest little line edge on it. It can become very thin. Now you can see up here how it's getting a little bit of that, let me show you that dry brush look. So that's when it's really helpful actually to the water that I was talking about. If you can lay it flat, you can add just a tiny touch of water And then that really, see, I didn't even add any more paint. I just add a little bit of water, and it just really helps that paint flow into all those little white spaces and really flow into the canvas. It helps it cover better. All right, so nice, huh? So again, just make sure it's flat, and then that way you don't have to worry about those water runs, but it will make this filling in process much easier. So just continuing on with lots more black here, holding that brush just like a pencil. And the basic shape in between each one of these branches, I always tell people it's a lot like the letter V, so that's what it feels like to the hand and the brain, so that makes it a little bit easier on you when you're filling that in. So just tell your brain it's like making the letter V, and then you're not as intimidated by it. You just kind of take it out to a nice fine point here. And you can relax a lot with the transition of making the branches too, because if there are little imperfections, not a worry, because branches are very, well, they have a lot of imperfections. They're very like nubby, knotty. That actually makes it look more like a real branch. So I always tell people to relax a little bit with that part too. And then I'm going to get kind of close here. You can kind of still see how there's just little bits of peekaboo white happening in there. And that's definitely, again, where the water is super helpful. Just add a little bit of that with the consistency of your paint. And then it'll really help it cover better. So that's normal. You just have to be patient with it. And just keep taking that into the background. So lots of black. I'm going to go ahead and start using bigger amounts here. And make sure I avoid my ghost for sure. It gets pretty tiny in there, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that job for a smaller brush. So a little bit, let's try a little bit. All right, so here's a little bit brush. Let's go ahead and push into a little bit of that black. Makes a little curve around that little bat wing. Way to go. All right, now we've got more black around here. All right, so we're gonna make a nice curve happen here. So I'm using that line edge again, just letting it flow all the way around. And that circle shape is big enough to where it can handle this size of a brush. And you actually want the longest line edge that you can get. So Mama brush to me is the best on that. Right, now in these really big areas, what you'll notice is as it dries, you'll probably see some transparency and some splotchiness I've noticed with the black. So you might have to do a little bit of a second coat, and what I would do too to help feather it out and not see your brush strokes as it dries is do a little cross stroke, just back and forth. So really get a nice layer of paint on one flat side and then just kind of crisscross it out. That'll give you some nice texture. So that'll give you a nice finish in those larger areas. Because we may not even detect it right now while we're filming it, but at home, you'll notice after it dries, you'll discover some of that will happen for you. So that'll be a nice little trick for you later on. All right, so we've got some tight little corners in here. Still have a little bit of cut-in to do here. About time for a smaller brush. All right, so let's get our little bit back here. Get those little details. Just hold it like a pencil. Look into those tiny little areas. It's really tiny. Oh no. I was not supposed to fill in there. Boy, if you're following along with me, you're like, thanks a lot, Tipsy. I've been following you this whole time. I don't think anybody is though. Well, maybe you are, and if you are, I'm so sorry. That should be white. I will fix that. Okay, well, so I have these moments more than I care to admit where I mess up. But as I always say, there are no mistakes, only possibilities. So the possibility here is that I'm going to teach you how to fix a mistake. So there's some irony there. All right, so here we go. I have to lift this off. And then what I'm going to do in order to correct this, I'm going to make my ghost kind of a soft gray anyhow, because there's no way I'm going to get a pure white ever again on that. So what I do is, this is still pretty fresh, so hold it flat, and then let's put some water down, and then we'll get a nice little lift in here. And I need some paper towels. Where are paper towels? Hold on, I got it. Wait a minute. I feel like I need to be, you know, on The Incredibles, the mom who has the flex arms, she needs to stretch across the room and get stuff. Okay. All right, so I just worked into that, and you can see I've got a pool of water kind of just on top. So I'm gonna see how it's lifting it right off. All right, so Q-tips are also really handy in this situation too, because I can get into really small areas. But again, let's get some water. Flat canvas, have to have flat canvas. And I'm just lightly creating a little pool of water there. I hope y'all can see that, because this is actually, we do this a lot for people in shows, because people come to us and say, oh my gosh, I painted on a place I didn't want. And we're like, no worries, and we take it and we do our little erase trick. if we can catch it quickly, then we can do this. So again, flat, get that little pool of water, take a clean paper towel, dab, and then we're gonna lift it right off the surface. And I did the ultimate party foul with black on white. It's fantastic. Okay. Way to go, Tipsy Artist. Okay, so here we go. But see, you can see how it's lifted quite a bit. I was working into this area here, and I can make it pretty clean. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure clean water again. You can just scrub, scrub, scrub. Now it won't be perfect, but you know, it'll definitely get it lifted to the point where I can work back in and get a nice coverage over the surface. Actually, that's really kind of cool looking. All right, I'm gonna show you what that looks like close up. All right, so we have a nice lift on there, because again, I painted on, I was starting to do all my cut-in work over the ghost, and then I went, oh my gosh, it's supposed to be white, oops. Okay, so what we can do here is, I'm gonna take a break from my black over here because our black will easily just blend with black later, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But I need to get to this pretty quickly. So I'm gonna do more white. Okay, so I have another issue. Hold on. Got my 2 belt on here. I need a nail. I always leave my... Okay, so I have a tendency to leave my caps open. And so I gotta poke through here and get that hardened paint off of there. Just keeping it real with y'all today. These are the real struggles. All right, let's get that out of there. Isn't this fascinating to watch? Okay, white paint. Let's get more of that. Okay, so here we go. And pure white is probably really not the way to go in this because it'll always be really transparent and it won't actually cover all that. So I need for this to be just a shade darker. So I need a little tiny amount of the black into the white. So I'm gonna make, but very tiny. So here's some black. Let's go ahead and push into that white. We want a super light, super, super light heather gray. So it's just a shade off of that white. So it'll appear white, but it will actually cover really great. Okay, so a lot of white, very super tiny amount of the black. Let's go ahead and twirl our brush into that. And then what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and just paint into our ghost. All right, so we're gonna have good coverage on that. It's gonna be great. And it's actually going to give our ghost a nice painterly quality to it. But I do have to admit, you know, if you were ever wanting to create this kind of look there, it almost looks like a fun watercolor look. I know, it's kind of neat how that worked out. I'm going to go ahead and cover it up for this, but it's still kind of a fun technique. So I'm going to go ahead and cut into these little areas here. completely cover him up. And then in terms of getting a nice wash of this over the surface too, if you wanted to, you could absolutely use a little bit of water here and help spread that around a little bit too. So I'm turning it to more of a flat position now to optimize that. And then one other thing, I'm going to go ahead and just avoid the mouth and the eyes, but you could actually paint right over those and not even worry about cutting in. And then that's such a dark pattern there, it would definitely show through. And even if you kind of go over it a little bit, that's easy to fix with a little bit of paint or a permanent marker. Okay, we're having progress. All right. See, that's pretty exciting. We had an extra lesson on how to fix being a goober and gooping up your painting. Yeah. You're welcome. I do that a lot. Okay. All right. So we fixed that. And so now I'm going to go back to the black, and I'm going to try to be a lot more careful this time. So that is one thing. There's a lot of little ins and outs around these little guys, so you have to kind of, you might want to monitor how much wine you have before you get going on this. So, or just don't worry about it. So yeah, I'm trying to really pay attention, like, oh, where's the ghost? So he's over there, so I'm still in black space. That negative space, still good, I think, pretty sure. So again, this is my little bit brush. And just working around that tiny little area there. We have really tiny area in here. Okay, I'm just making sure. I was like, yeah, still good. So negative space in here. Negative space in here. All right, so now I need to work around the ghost. Let's do that this time. I think I made it. It's very exciting. I'm so glad I didn't do that on both of them. I'll come down to this little corner here. Getting all that tiny little work done. And then I still have all this to fill in. But I'm going to work that in with a bigger brush, but I'm going to come into these small jack-o'-lantern pattern here. So little triangles. One other little piece of advice, which is very helpful too, if you do use your permanent marker to come back in for the tinier little details, certainly acceptable, encouraged, if you want to really keep it easy. Just make sure that your paint is completely dry before you work over the top, or it will kill your Sharpie immediately. And we want to try to preserve the life of those as much as possible. So this is just pure black paint and my little bit brush. And one other thing you can watch too, to keep your hand steady during all of this, I tend to rest the weight of my hand on my pinky, and that helps stabilize my hand so that I can move, you know, the rest of these fingers here with some ease and get into these tiny little areas. Getting all this precision work done first, and then we'll just fill it in. Beautiful. Okay, so bigger area to fill in here. So go ahead and leave a little bit in the water. I'm grabbing my mama brush now. She's been in the water, so I'm gonna go ahead and dry her off really quick. And then let's go back into a little bit more black. And we're just gonna fill this in. All right, so we still have a little bit of fine detail work. I will be honest with you, using the permanent marker to really firm up these tiny little lines, so much easier. Again, just make sure your paint's completely dry and nobody will even know that that's on there. However, purists who want to do it with all paint, no worries. Take your little bit brush. Let me show you how to get in around these little shapes here. So we want to take a little bit and do a little twist here into that paint. This is also where a super tiny amount of water can be really helpful. But again, keep your canvas flat. And so then I will, make sure you can see me. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this around the edges. And this will help firm that up. And after we're done here, I am going to come back over this ghost with that softer gray, but for right now, for this class, I'm going to go ahead and leave him white. You do have the option to leave the ghost just white, especially if you don't goober into it like I did. So you can absolutely do that. The canvas is painted and primed white, and you can even just touch it up with a little bit of white paint too if you want. Now the lettering I did with the permanent marker to begin with, and little tricks on lettering. So again, either permanent marker, or as you come into that shape with your little bit brush, the main thing to observe and be careful of before you go apply is make sure you avoid the negative space of the letter. So for example, we have negative space in here, 2 places on the B, see it's just that hole in the center, and then the 2 holes in the O's. Make sure you take that line around the hole. Sometimes people do the line inside of the hole and they accidentally black out their negative space there, and then they lose the letter. So that is one thing you have to be careful of. All right, so we've got a few things that really helps to kind of come back over that black with, so we're just helping redefine some of these little shapes in here. Go ahead and pick this up a little bit so you can see it better. So, and some of these black outlines are definitely optional. You can leave it just more of an unfinished look. You know, a lot of people have that style. So for example, it would just be more of that brown, you know, right to the edge. Which is absolutely acceptable. So it kind of just depends on what you prefer. Or you can do something that's a bit more subtle too, like a charcoal color. It's not a real harsh black. So that's also an option. And I'm actually picking up a little bit of this brown with the black. Softens it up just a little bit here. And I'm just reinforcing those little lines. I haven't forgotten about the grass. I will definitely do that grass for you. Okay, we're getting real close to being done. Getting that dry edge, so I'm going to turn it flat, add a little bit of water, fill in. Okay. All right, now one of the things that I want to create a little bit more contrast with is the bats. So it is a little bit tricky here with that planning. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a white and create a softer gray again, a little bit of a lighter gray. And just kind of lightly push that in. And just do a little bit of a faint outline right in the center. And just lightly outline. So it's just a shade lighter, and it really makes it kind of pop out in front, because it was looking a little bit lost there. So again, this is just a little bit of a lighter gray over the top of this darker gray. So we're doing just one little outline here. And then we've got a little bit of this white. I am going to cover that up. So we've got, take just pure white here. Go ahead and work that in. Excellent, I picked up some yellow. Let's go into that white right there. Oh, that's better. Let's add little highlights of white now. So a little bit brush, we're just using little touches of white. You can even do a little bit in through here too, just tiny little highlights. All right, now for some fun grass. All right, so let's go ahead and do our little buddy. And we'll make sure I've got plenty of sage green nearby. Let's see. Oh, I see a message. Hello. Howdy. Yes, it was good seeing David. So he was able to come out for a little bit. And so, yeah, we appreciate your prayers because his last post was that he does have stage 3 kidney failure. And so he is still waiting on heart surgery. But he was actually in good spirits and doing pretty well and was able to get out a little bit. So we were super happy about that. So y'all keep him in your prayers. So he's a walking miracle for sure. All right. So, grass. Here we go. We have some sage, and then I still have a little bit of yellow nearby, and then we got a little bit of white nearby, and probably even do a little bit of, you know, some of the gray nearby too. But I'm gonna start with a lot of this sage, loading it up on my little buddy brush, and then let's just go straight up. So we'll start and just pull straight up. And especially as we cover over that line right there, adding a little bit more of the black to it will definitely create a little bit of a shadow and help obscure that line. So that's going to be really important there. And you can add a little bit of this dark charcoal to begin with. And then go back in with the sage. But see, that's just creating that nice little shadow there. So again, just lots of tiny little lines. Just like little upward dashes. And we'll do this all over this little grassy area here. And then anytime we're going over a line, well, see how it's playing peekaboo on us, that little bit of line? We don't like that. That looks a little bit unfinished, for lack of a better word there. I think it's so the best to do. A little bit of black will help obscure that. So every single time we see that line, we definitely want to add a little bit of that shadow to obscure that line there. Get rid of that hard line that's peeking through. So best way to do it is a little bit of that dark charcoal. And then let's just extend it all the way down so that we have a good foundation of basically the same kind of texture happening. And we'll do this all the way across here. So this is a really simple stroke. Just kind of onward and upward and just go up. There it is. And then come back in with a lot more of that sage. You can also add a little bit of a highlight with a little bit of white happening in here too. Just take this all the way across. Let's see. Hello, hello, everybody. Ezra. Is that the Ezra I think it is? That hung out with us in Guthrie for a little while? If it is, we love you, we miss you, we adore you. We wish you were back in our streets teaching us yoga. All right, so lots of fun little grass here. Man, this painting has been a workout. has been, okay, and I'm stuck to my canvas. It's okay. That's been my experience today. I've had all kinds of lessons for y'all as I've had to learn from many, as I say, okay, again, no mistakes, only possibilities. That's my big lesson. All right, so I have another one. This whole painting today is just filled with me just being a big goober. All right, so I'm gonna come back in. I had to hold the canvas a lot to get it, bring it close and bring it back. So now I had this fun little lift off here. Now here's what's fun is that I had some other paint that was stuck into it. So if you love that and appreciate that and think it's groovy, you can leave it, or you can just paint right over it. So super easy on that. So a little bit of black. Just kind of softly blend that back. Okay, I think we're done. This is our beautiful little Halloween painting. All right, so I am so thankful for y'all. And I want to tell you that I just posted a thing today about being on the lookout for people who need encouragement. So I am shipping out free kits to people who you think need a little boost and need some creativity at home and some love and all that good stuff. So if you know somebody who needs that, please let me know, send me a message. And we're going to be hooking those people up with creative love. So yeah, just tell me, you know, you don't have to go into all the gory details, but or you can if you want to, if you need an ear to cry on or whatever. That's what I'm here for. But yeah, so let me know. Tell me why. Tell me what's happening. And even if it's you, even if you need encouragement, let me know. So we love y'all very much. We're so thankful for y'all being here with us today. We've had a great time. And I will see y'all really, really soon. I think I'll be back online maybe Thursday. So yeah, so excited to see. No, I'm actually traveling. Yeah, wow, it's gonna be weird. I've been quarantined for a long time and inside, but Thursday we're actually going out to Enid. So you'll be, you know, seeing me with a mask on, I guess. We'll be out there in Enid doing a little bitty show. Everybody's socially distant, so if you're in that area, come check us out. We're gonna be putting everybody in big tables all over the ballroom, spread out everywhere. So it's all good. And so that's Enid Thursday. And then I'll be back online soon, probably Friday or this weekend. But anyway, love y'all so much. If you want this kit, you can find it at tipsyartist.com. So super easy to do. And then again, let me know if you have a friend or yourself, somebody who needs encouragement. And we look forward to seeing y'all soon. Y'all have a beautiful rest of the day.